So thank you, everybody. Uh, Sorry that I have to do this one offline because of work pressure. I wish I was there in person and were able to interact with you more and have more interesting discussions around AI and machine learning. So the topic of my discussion today is framework for understanding the impact of machine learning and artificial intelligence in healthcare industry. So I talk about a framework of adopting AI and ML, and I specifically focus on the healthcare industry. A brief about myself. I am a part-time doctoral student at Jain School of Global Management, India. I'm a full-time working professional. I'm a partner at Ernst & Young in India. I have more than 20 years of industry experience around digital transformation, tech strategy, tech implementation for large private and public sector clients across India, US, Europe. Right now at EY, I'm leading digital healthcare transformation and citizens services technology transformation for government and public sector. My co-author, Professor A. Seetharaman, he has expressed his regrets for not being able to attend the conference. He is a professor by advisor and dean of Jain School of Global Management, and he is based out of Singapore. Next, I will now go straight into my topic. Before I come to the framework, let me give you a little bit on the context of AI ML in healthcare. AI ML is, and with the cognitive capabilities of AI ML, they are one of the main transformation drivers in the healthcare industry all over the world. There is a lot of research, lot of industry studies, pilot, real-time applications that are happening of AI ML. The potential is immense, and the research and the acceptance of the technology, we are seeing it. There is no sign of it slowing down. Increasingly, there is an increase in the usage and the research in this area. Now, when we talk about AI ML, to understand the framework better, it is good to understand what does AI ML do. So it actually enhances the cognitive capabilities and help machines to mimic the human behavior. So how do they mimic? There are 6 areas in which they help. First is the vision, detect. They can study large amounts of documents, pictures, video stream to identify patterns and objects. How does it help in the healthcare industry? When they look into, for example, when they look into large amount of diagnostic images, MRI images, X-ray images, lab images, they're able to probably detect abnormalities, cancer cases, benign cases, and assist doctors in helping them to diagnose the problem and in better decision making. The second area is prediction. So again, by using large amounts of data and through training, a supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforced learning, the machines are able to learn and predict the likely outcome. How does it help in the healthcare industry? For example, when we take a large amount of data, demographic data, the disease patterns, and do a population health analytics, using the epidemiological factors, one is able to find out the incidence of a large disease, and this was used a lot during the COVID times, to find an incidence of a disease that is going to happen in a particular region. And then the administration can take the necessary measures for training of the workforce, building the capacities, better deployment of resources. The third area is automation using robotics or the robotic process automation to assist and augment the human judgment. So you can have a lot of repetitive tasks being automated, and the human touch, empathy, this can be more concentrated by the humans. The next area is simulation or digital twinning, where we create a visual representation of the outcomes. And again, can be used for very risky operations. You can do a simulation to understand that where the problems can happen, what kind of cases will happen, the way the operation is happening. Interpretation, the text to speech and the speech to text. We train machines to read documents, convert text and speech to data, and then derive insight from data. This can be used by the physician. They do not have to spend time in writing. 17% of the time of the physicians goes in writing and there can be less errors in encoding of the data, and the physicians can spend more time in care delivery. Then the last is the Internet of Things and edge computing. Now there are a lot of machines that are being used in the devices that are connected with the patients, and from where the data is coming, there can be a two-way dialogue. We understand, read the data through the AI, and we can provide recommendations. There are wearables, there are implants through which the data is coming. The physician can do a remote consultation and be able to give a better care. So if I look at it, the areas of which AI ML has potential areas, which I put in the right, are in predictive medicine. You can devise for a particular patient or a particular group of patients based on the risk profile, a predictive approach towards medicine management. Patient data management, again, as we said, from the operational area, chatbots, digital nursing assistants, you can give a 24/7 support and service to the patients. Similarly, in the healthcare service management, where you can have the robotic process automation to automate a lot of these back office and the front office operations. Disease diagnostics, as we said, that you are able to look into large volumes of data, and especially the images, to do a kind of diagnostic of the diseases. Clinical decision making, where when the patient comes to the doctor based on his electronic health record, that initial assessment can be done by AI/ML. So we see a lot of potential, and as we see that there's a lot of research going on here, both by the academics as well as the industry, to get more into the healthcare area. While we talk about these things, that a lot of potential is there, we find a lot of challenges in AI/ML adoption. And when I did a literature review, we looked into the last 5 years of literature, a lot of challenging areas came up. Data quality. Here, AI/ML is basically a data science problem where you need data, and you need quality data. If you have wrong data, biased data, the prediction will all go wrong. So the data quality is an important challenge. Accountability. Accountability, who is accountable? Okay, the AI/ML gives a kind of a recommendation to the physician, to the nurse. Who is responsible for the final decision making? Does the accountability lies with the doctor, or the lies with the machine or the algorithm? Then the algorithmic error. How right are the algorithms? Even if there's what is the prediction, the error percentage? Is it like 10%, 15%? Are there biases in the algorithms? Explainability. As you know, that in the machine learning, that the data gets trained. As you give it more and more data, the algorithm prepares its own set of rules and strategies. And it is very difficult to understand the results that are coming, because the AI/ML algorithms are trying to form, they devise their own rules and strategies. So that explainability becomes an important factor, where it's not easy to say in a very linear way whether that these are the inputs and this is the result of that. Privacy. Patients are concerned about the privacy, how their data is used, who is using the data. Then The workforce, they are worried about the job loss, the managerial control that they have. Trust, another important factor that is coming up is that are the doctors willing to trust the outcome that is coming, or they continue to use their legacy way of addressing a patient? Ethical issues. What is it creating any bias? Is it creating any kind of a preference towards a particular demography? So those kind of ethical issues comes, social issues, the AI divide that happens between the people who understand and the people who don't understand, the medical legal cases that can happen from an error. So we see a lot of challenges, and these challenges continue to be discussed, researched, and need to be addressed as we try to make more and more the adoption of this AI/ML and the artificial intelligence in the industry. So here is where my research comes. So the questions that I try to ask are, just get this one. It's coming. What are the factors for AI adoption? How does patient experience from the AI adoption and the AI systems? How will companies, the tech companies which build AI solutions, okay, what are the factors that they should consider for better adoption? What kind of government policies will help in AI acceptance? These were the research questions that came up as we were trying to develop the conceptual framework. So, okay. So what are the factors? The first factor is data governance. As I said, that AI/ML is all about data. So if there are no processes set to manage the quality, the scalability, the usage, and the security of the data, then there will be no progress on the AI. The second is patient voices. See, end of the day, all the software, algorithm, tools is all about patients. So if we do not hear the patient's voices, exactly what they want, their emotions, if they are not captured, their feedback, what is their expectation, then the AI adoption will never happen. Next is the predictive medicine. The whole idea is to have AI/ML is to have customized solution based on a particular risk profile and demographic. That is what the patients or the customers will want out of this AI/ML. Privacy and security of the data. This is another factor, as we have seen in the earlier research papers that were coming out, that privacy and security is another important factor for AI adoption. The last one that I've identified is a workforce training, that the AI divide between the people who understand and not understand will be a very important factor, and the training of them will be an important factor for this one. So these are the 5 large pillars of factors that will be involved in the AI. So these are the independent variables, and what I see on the right is a dependent variable, which is the patient experience, the perceived patient experience out of these factors. What is the outcome of this perceived patient experience? Are accurate and complete data we have, better information sharing, early treatment, better disease diagnosis, improved patient satisfaction, and safety and protection of the patient privacy. Now, each of these factors, there will be several sub-factors governing the factor. When we talk of data governance, it will come the processes around data quality, data completeness, data diversity, or even the ambiguity in the data. Okay, so these factors are the sub-factors around the data governance, and each of these have an impact on the patient experience. In the patient voices comes its demography, the cultural factors, age, gender, and the socio-economic factors. In the predictive medicine comes the way the proactive advice comes, the disease diagnosis, treatment, the pre-disease, and the post-care. Privacy and security, we have the security, patient data protection, privacy invasion, and identity theft. In the workforce training, we have the competency of the workforce, what kind of education we are giving, the trust between the clinicians and the AI system, and the empathy and the compassion they bring. So this actually is the conceptual framework that is being proposed in this paper to govern the AI adoption and the factors. So you see on the right-hand side are the outcomes. The perceived patient experience is the dependent variable. Then you have the independent variables as data governance, patient voices, predictive medicine, security and privacy, and workforce training. And then there are sub-factors under each of these factors, which also has an influence. Some of these factors can later become a mediating vector or a moderating variable. But at this point of time, what we are presenting out here is a framework to understand the AI ML adoption. And the methodology that is being used is to a literature review to understand the factors and clustering of those factors, and then coming up with a framework to investigate the particular adoption. With this conceptual framework, I go to the next slide, which is the research implications. Okay, what is the implication of this research? So we have these are that we are talking about AI in healthcare, and we looked at the 5 factors, the broad factors. Then we will look into what are the problems from, or what are the challenges in each of the factors, and what are the potential solutions. So when I look at these 5 factors, which I explained in the earlier slide: data governance, predictive medicine, privacy and security, patient voices, workforce competency. So data governance. Challenge can be inaccurate input data can lead to misleading results and an inaccurate model. The solution will be, the data cleaning, proper data treatment, having a proper data governance program in place, having a proper master data analysis. Predictive medicine, again, the challenge is the opacity of the algorithms, the explainability of the algorithms, which results in a lack of trust between the clinicians and the insights that are coming. This can be, solution is an effective communication between the AI scientists, the developers of those programs, the technologists, the scientists, the statisticians, and the medical practitioners. A more effective communication needs to be there. It cannot be a silo kind of a thing. Then we look into the security and the privacy. Again, if there is a lack here, the challenges are there is a lack of sometimes regulatory measures of how this patient data is being used, accessed, who is using it. Is it going to some private hands? That is where the patient becomes concerned and is not willing to share it. So having a strong regulatory measures, a proper patient data protection laws, and proper cybersecurity measures will alleviate this problem. Patient voices. The challenge is that patients still do not like to communicate with machines or take inputs from machines. Even if the wearables and the implants, they like to communicate with humans. So the solution can be using NLP to translate the patient feedback, whatever the grievances and the feedback, into actionables. So they may be having some kind of, they will be communicating, getting that communication into kind of an actionables from the feedback, doing some kind of a sentiment analytics will help. The workforce competency, that again, as we said, that the adoption of the AI-based systems is a challenge. There's a slowness in the adoption of the AI-based system. So the best solution is to go through a continuous change management and a training of the workforce. So this is how we looked into the different factors. We identified some top two or three problems and the potential solutions. So we developed the framework first, and then based on that framework, we looked into the problems and solutions at a generic level. We then looked into the next one, which is okay, let's take it. Can we apply? What is the applicability of the framework in a particular country? Can we use this framework to understand AI adoptions in India, Australia, UK, China? So we took a case study of India. We did a qualitative analysis to look at these four factors. Data governance. The possible solution that we have seen is the government has recognized that data is a fundamental thing to do any kind of predictive modeling or analysis. So government has come up with a plan which is called Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission, where the interoperability developing it because it is not possible to develop new systems and replace the legacy systems. So developing the interoperability through APIs to connect the patient records so that if the patient travels from one part of India to other, his electronic health records are available and the quality of the data is monitored through the proper interoperable framework with using the ICT standards, the SNOMED standards is the way to move forward for the data governance. Predictive medicine, for that you need data, the patient data. And so availability of the complete electronic health records of the patient is important, for which the transactional systems need to be in place, on top of which the AI analytics can run. Security and privacy, the entire, as we said that, that the first point that I had, Ayushman Bharat Digital Mission by the government of India to make it interoperable data, different systems will be connected, but all this connection of the data, the access has to come through a patient consent. Only if the patient gives it, okay, you share my records with a particular hospital or a particular doctor, then only the records will be shared. And also the data protection bill is currently in the parliament to provide the necessary guidelines on the patient data protection. Patient voices through digital assistance. A lot of government institutions right now, both public and private, are coming up with digital assistants, the nursing assistants, the chatbots, to understand and hear the patient voices, doing the sentiment analysis. And the workforce competency through constant training of the ASHA health workers so that they become digitally enabled. The fear factor that goes out for them, they do not have that there is a job loss, but these digital systems are aiding in them in making better, to be more connected with the patients and the citizens. So in this way, we try to see how the framework can be applied through these governing 5 factors, and through each of these factors and lenses, we look into the problems and the solutions. So what are the scope of future research that we have out here? Right now, the digital infra, what is the impact of 5G, cloud, IoT, because these are coming big time. Lot of data means that your digital infrastructure should be ready. So the impact of IoT, 5G, cloud needs to be considered. Blockchain, to get into the privacy and the security of the electronic health data is getting more and more interest by the healthcare providers, practitioners, researchers. So blockchain and AI. What are the government regulations, the regulatory measures that the government is bringing up, and the privacy and the security? So from the factors, these are some of the future research areas and how they impact the AI adoption and the experience the patients will finally have. We need to look into these areas. My concluding slide is on the conclusions that we have received. So what we did was that in this paper, we did a literature survey to understand the potential of AI and in healthcare. What we have realized that AI in healthcare is still at the infancy stage. There is a lot of potential, but still the usage of it is still in limited, maybe in a particular department, maybe in a very pilot way. They are not going for a large scale implementation or an acceptance. So there is a lot, but there's a lot of potential and a lot of interest, which is why we are even having a conference like this. There are a number of factors, there are a number of challenges that we have seen from the literature review, and we have identified those challenges. We have then developed a framework for the AI adoption, and we have developed the conceptual framework with both the what are the independent variables, what are the dependent variables, what are the outcomes, what are the sub factors for those independent variables. And then we looked into that framework and then found out what kind of the typical challenges and the solutions. Through we investigated them through that framework. We also looked using the framework into the country, a country specific challenges and its adoption. We also considered what are the future factors that are there in AI adoption. For example, we looked into the need to look into the blockchain, digital infra from the tech side, the government regulatory factors that needs to come to make AI more ethical AI, regulated AI. And lastly, this framework needs a quantitative evaluation. Which is the next step of the research, is to take actual data from the industry, from the market, and do a quantitative evaluation of which of the factors which have a stronger positive influence, a negative influence, what is the confidence level of these factors through some kind of a statistical analysis. So in conclusion, I can tell that there is a lot of potential, there is a lot of areas of research to do, adoption is low. We need to have a framework to study. This research helps to develop a novel way to understand the adoption process. I will conclude here, and I will